Welcome to Life in Sirens, Behind and on the Scene, a podcast by first responders. We're your hosts, Sophie,
Jamie,
and Aubrey.
The content provided in this podcast is for informational and educational purposes only and should not be considered medical advice. The views and opinions expressed by the hosts and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the official policies or positions of any medical institutions, emergency medical services, or healthcare organizations. Patient privacy is a top priority, and all discussions involving real-world emergency situations are de-identified and altered to ensure confidentiality. Always consult with a qualified healthcare professional or your local EMS protocols before making any decisions regarding patient care or medical practices. Listener discretion is advised, as some topics may include discussions of real-world emergency situations.
Welcome to another episode of Life in Sirens. Today we're coming at you not live from EMS World.
Hey, so real quick, we forgot to put this in. This is about our blog post that is going to be up at our website, and it's all things EMS World and everything we got to do in Indy, and it's going to be at life, L-I-F-E, and sirens.com. So if you want to hop over and check that out. But now back to our regularly scheduled programming.
Today we have some special guests. We have Shay Montgomery and Tyler Morris with us. So I'm going to go ahead and pass off the mic and let them introduce themselves and kind of tell you a little bit about them.
Thank you guys for having us. This is so exciting. So my name is Shayla. I'm a flight nurse and paramedic. I've been in EMS for over 13 years and always went into it with the goal to want to fly, but I've done all things: ICU, ER, worked on an ambulance. And now I fly for Lifeline 3 in Minnesota. And I'm going to pass it to my brother and let him introduce himself. The reason he's here is because I finagled him into speaking with me at this conference. I'm calling it my insurance policy because he's a much better speaker than me.
Yes, but you bring the clout, so. My name is Tyler Morris. I am a paramedic and an EMS educator in upstate New York. So my full-time position is teaching a formative paramedic class. Predominantly, I'm responsible for lab coordination amongst our full-time faculty. And then I also work part-time as a paramedic still for Moreau EMS in South Glens Falls, New York. I've been in EMS for about 11 years now.
So we're just going to do like an interview style with these guys. So some rapid fire questions. Actually, not rapid fire. Take as much time as you literally want. What is one thing that you wish more people understood about EMS or like your specific role?
I think that there is a large gap between the public's perception of what happens when you call 911 and the realities of most systems, especially as you move away from urban centers for EMS. So I operate in a kind of a normal suburban area, and the expectation is you call 911 and you get somebody who's medically trained who's going to show up and render care. I think there are a lot of people who don't realize that they're at risk of calling 911 and not having anybody show up because the adequacy of staffing, the adequacy of education is so widely variable from place to place. And I think that more public awareness about what an EMS system and what an EMS response is actually supposed to constitute would be a big step in the right direction in terms of seeing those resources actualized on a meaningful basis across an entire system and not just areas of densest population.
Yeah, I think that's a good answer. I think there's also a misconception too on just how much we can do in the pre-hospital setting. I think some people have the idea that when you're a flight nurse or medic, you're literally doing surgery, or they think that you're just giving a ride. So like there's such a broad understanding of what they think that we do. And I also think to give our ground medics a lot of credit that they think because flight medics exist, that ground paramedics don't have the amazing, awesome scope that they do as well. And they're just as capable of doing most of the skills that we do in flight medicine also.
Yeah, I'm just going to piggyback off of what Shay said. There are ground services in the region that I fly for that have stouter scope than we have on the aircraft, which is wild to me because I fly far from my home, so my home EMS community is a lot different than that, but there are some pretty stout scopes out there. It's pretty impressive what we're moving to.
What does EMS culture mean to you, and what would you change about it if you could?
I don't know how much of a hot take this is. EMS culture is kind of something I want to change entirely. There's a lot good about it, but there's so much unprofessionalism in our field. I think you find things that are culturally acceptable in EMS that would never fly in any other part of allied healthcare. And I think it's largely preposterous. And I mean, I'm not breaking the demographic as a cis approaching middle-aged white guy, but like middle-aged white dudes have been ruining EMS for years. And there's so much of this is how we've always done it, and that boys club nonsense. And every year in our first lab orientation, I ask our incoming class, how many of you work with unprofessional dinguses? And everyone's hand unanimously for hundreds of students now has gone up. And that's heartbreaking. And the only way you change a culture is through education. So nobody I know that's heavily involved in education does this for, accolades or adulation. It is because they see something about a system they don't like, and the best way to affect a system is through education. So yeah, there's a lot of trauma bonding and camaraderie and shared experience, but I also think that we need to find a more professional way to express ourselves in that regard.
Don't you ask a more specific question though to the women? Can you speak on that just briefly, because I think it kind of goes along with this.
So we do an ethics lecture in EMS at the beginning of every class, and it's our program director specifically who heads up the hour, but usually all of the faculty are in for that presentation. And by a show of hands, we see how many people in the class have been either verbally or physically sexually assaulted, and the amount of new people in the profession, like a year or less, who raise their hands in response to that question is, again, heartbreaking. And it's still a very prevalent issue. It is not a deep dive to research plenty of places that are paying astronomical sums because of the old school EMS culture rearing its ugly head and victimizing people repeatedly. And even post Me Too, it's been egregious. I actually wrote a paper about this, but that's neither here nor there. The point is, again, anything that you want to change, it has to start with education. So that's why we do what we do.
This is a side note on culture, so we might have to skip this section because your answer may be no, but have you seen Code 3? You have seen Code 3? What is your take on the culture there that you see and how that relates to reality?
We reluctantly watched it the other night because we both are like, so we do this all the time at work. Do I really want to sit and watch it, right? But we kind of feel like we had to sit and watch it. But what I think Code 3 really, like, one of the most memorable parts is when he's like, am I your best friend? I am your best friend, aren't I? And he like doesn't even know where he lives, right? Because I think in EMS culture, we get away with a little bit more than you would in like any other type of job where you go and clock in and clock out because you live with people. So you end up knowing a lot more about them, a lot, like spending so much time with them. You see crazy things with them. You kind of trauma bond with them. But then I feel like at the same time, like we let a lot more things slide that we wouldn't in a normal workplace because of the closeness with each other. And I think that sometimes is like lack of respect. Like you're going to see your partner have like a worse day. I don't know. I think that we sometimes take for granted that this is a job that we clock in and out for, that we get paid for. It's not, you still are afforded all the same things that you should at any other job, in my opinion, including a safe and, semi-decent work culture.
Yeah, I think sometimes maybe it's okay to have it be something you do and not necessarily something you are. It's not that nothing in the film was unidentifiable. I think there was a lot of stuff that was common experience for many EMS professionals, but I also think it kind of espoused or reduced us all to maybe the worst parts of the culture. Because yeah, we all see horrible stuff, but we also maintain the right not to become jaded a-holes about it. You know what I mean? I think some people see that as an inevitability or a rite of passage, right? And this has been EMS education for years. Either we browbeat people until they're as broken and useless as we are, or they realize they don't want to do this and they leave the profession. Neither of which are sustainable things, right, within a culture. So yes, a lot of it was humorous in the like shared experience perspective, but a lot of it kind of just reinforced a lot of the most negative perceptions of EMS, and I'm not a huge fan of that.
Yeah, and I also want to just give a little shout out to, although I have met a few doctors that I wish were more respectful and actually listened to me, the majority of EMS physicians that I meet are extremely grateful, kind, give me the time to give report. So even though that movie portrays that ER doc as, it was very extreme, but don't want the public to think that that's how we normally interact with each other, because it's usually not.
Tyler, I know that you have an interesting perspective on this because you see it from both the field perspective and an educator perspective. And I was going to ask you what you thought the solution to this problem was, because we hear it from, it starts with the peers, it starts with admin, but you already said, like, it starts with education. But do you have any advice for people that are already in the field and they work with maybe some old heads, to put it nicely, that do have that bad attitude, bad culture, however you want to frame it, that obviously they're not going to be back in the classroom anytime soon?
They have to retire at some point. I mean, it sounds maybe reductive or overly simplistic, but you kind of have to be the change you want to see in the world. And the other part of the spiel we start with each class is that once you're out there, it is one thing to espouse professionalism when you're being held to the standard, which even if we can't affect your culture long term, we can hold you to a standard of professionalism while you're ours. But having them drink the Kool-Aid a little bit and recognize that they're always ours and that they have resources available to them, even post-graduation, even when they're out there isolated, facing the tide of unprofessionalism. And eventually, our product will outnumber the holdovers of a broken system, is quite frankly, and it's multiplicative, right? We're really starting to see, I've been teaching for 9 years now, and we're getting to the point where graduates are taking over agencies and they're becoming the flight clinicians when they step off the skid. We've watched so many students run past us. It's a fantastic thing to experience. And they're getting into positions where they're really starting to affect change, and not just administratively, but the culture of systems is starting to change. So it really does come back to education. And quite frankly, the idea that a paramedic would have a choice to train others or not is bonkers to me. I think we are entrusting you, to a degree, a role as an educator if you are a paramedic, and you just better be okay with that.
And also, if you're in an environment where change has not been affected and you're not in the position to immediately document everything.
Yeah, I like when you were talking about the culture of Code 3 and kind of that it really kind of disposes us to like the least of us, right? One thing I would have loved to see at the end of that film is when he came back into the fold and came back into EMS and was like, actually, I do want to be here. I really wish that they would have made some sort of physical change as well, like a cleaner uniform shirt tucked in, boots zipped up, like to show that this attitude kind of comes with this aesthetic. And when you take pride in your job and you want to be professional and you want to present yourself well, that you also present your appearance well. And I wish that we would have seen a little bit of that change. The one thing that I really did appreciate about the film is that when they were showing the like behavioral scene, essentially, and you see like the desperation in both of the like medic and the EMT's eyes of like with the interaction with PD, like, please let us handle this. There's a moment there where you see how linked that crew is, and where they are like thinking the same things, and they didn't really have to talk to each other to be like, this is our plan, but they were so on the same page that it went so smoothly. And I think that that's something that I love so much about pre-hospital medicine, is that you truly become so linked together that you can have effective patient care moving forward with almost no conversation. Now, clearly communication is important, but it is a cool moment where you realize that you've kind of bonded enough to be able to move forward without having this like long explicit talk. And that's something about EMS culture that I want to keep. And that is always my like little resistance to moving towards like other fields of health, because I don't want to lose that. But the professionalism, absolutely, like it has to be improved. We can no longer walk into people's houses with like mustard stains on our shirts, like just looking ridiculous. We can't do it.
Just to add to that, I would applaud its moments of sincerity that it conveyed. I think that was kind of when it was at its strongest, right? When it elaborated that the crusty facade is something that people use as a coping mechanism for somebody who does care deeply underneath. My general takeaway, though, was let's do that all the time and maybe get over the facade and what we feel we need to project to others.
So we've talked about, the negative parts of, or the negative influence, I guess, we have in our peer relationships or maybe administrators or things like that. I wanted to ask you, who's someone that's influenced you or encouraged you or supported you or been like a change for you? Maybe like a light in the dark, if you will. Kind of kept you going when the crusty guys were at it.
For me, my program director, Howard Huth, program director of the SUNY Coble Skill Paramedic Program, has been a tremendous mentor. He is somebody who has taken, quite frankly, a lot of chances on me when there were other, on paper, more well-qualified options, both in my roles as education and then getting into speaking at conferences, so on and so forth. And he remains an excellent resource and a fantastic mentor in this field. And I remember very early on something he said when I was in paramedic school: if you want to be treated like a professional, then act like a professional. And then, sometimes when you move from a student relationship to a peer, especially in education, there's that old adage, right? Don't meet your heroes. And that has never been the case, fortunately, for the people that I have esteemed most highly in MS education, because what he's managed, and I'll say he, because really he came into a closing program 15 years ago, and now we are well regarded as one of the best in the state of New York. And that doesn't happen by accident. It takes somebody who is steering a ship and fostering a culture of professionalism. And over the years, through the additions that he's made, I now work with a group of people that I truly feel, even if we have different methods and different depths of experience, there might be multiple ways to skin the same cat, which is a fishing adage. I never realized that. I thought it was just a morbid anti-feline message for years, but it's about catfish. But there's more than one way to do things, as long as you're unified in the overall objective about how you want to espouse the profession to those that you're educating, right? And now I work with people that I trust implicitly, and it's a fantastic thing. And I frankly would not trade for much more money elsewhere, because I don't think they could bring the same culture we get to experience. So he's been a huge influence to me.
I feel like the answer to this for me has probably changed through the years, because I've moved through some different systems. But I think the biggest takeaway is you don't have to be the right fit for every system. So you may have a mentor or something there, and sometimes even your mentors let you down. And just know that there are really good people out there who are happy to have your back and support you. And I feel like right now I'm at the best place that I could be for where I fit. And I would say my manager, Brendan Janison, from the second I went to this program, I didn't know anybody. And he immediately was like, "Who are you? Why are you here? I don't care. I'm glad you're here." And just has really been a really good friend, and started as a peer, then got a job as my manager. So now he's my manager. But yeah, I'd like to give him a shout out, because he's been a really, really solid person in my life, personally and professionally. So
I love that your mentors can change from a place of education to a peer to a command staff. And that's really cool. If you go through all of our different mentors that we've had, one that we all just got to talk to was Chad. Yeah. He was our instructor when we were in school, and has just continued to stay that genuine, just really honestly good human being, and wildly clinically solid. He is just a fantastic human. But I like that it can be on so many different levels of mentorship. I think that's cool.
Well, I don't have anything, so I'm passing the mic to Aubrey.
I think that we've talked about the cons of the closeness of EMS.
should we all sing it into the mic?
Since we're on the topic of Demi Lovato, I just found Wait, I thought someone said that into the mic. Okay, so let me just tell you guys. Sorry for the chaos. We are filming or recording in a very public place, and there was I think, janitorial staff member singing Demi Lovato. And it just reminded me, this one time, I guess, maybe, I don't know when, it was in 2007, I made a little I don't know what it would be called. It wasn't really a whatever. What is it called? A time capsule? It wasn't a time capsule, but it was a piece of paper. And I put that, it was like questions. Yeah, a letter to my future self with questions. And I put that La La Land by Demi Lovato was my favorite song. And then the next question says, what is the favorite thing you own? And it also said La La Land. So I guess I was obsessed with La La Land, which, I mean, I did listen to that song when I found that time capsule thing, and it still slaps, so, yeah. I was really obsessed with that, and that tracks for me, but, anyway, back to professional things.
All right, guys. Now, what is a lesson that you've had to learn the hard way, but in the end has made you a better provider?
Okay, I think this is a really good question. And my answer to this is going to be that even when you do the right thing and you do right by your patient, by your training, there will always be somebody who's going to tell you you could have done it different, better, or just straight up tell you that you're wrong. And if you know that you did the right thing and you did right by your patient, this will truly make you a better provider if you can block out some of that noise. I don't know always where it stems from. It might be lack of self-confidence on their part, maybe that they truly think you're wrong and you guys have a different understanding, and sometimes that can lead to a cool medical discussion, but sometimes they're just naysayers. And if you do something clinically that maybe they hadn't thought of or just haven't done, sometimes people don't take it well. I personally love to celebrate people when they do cool stuff or have good calls and cheer them on and whatnot, but there may always be a critic, and don't let that sway you from doing the right thing or pulling the trigger on an intervention if you knew that it was right, because you're worried about what somebody else will think.
Absolutely. I had a preceptor when I was in paramedic school, and he told me this one thing, and it has really stuck with me. He said that when you're making like big patient decisions, you are the one that's going to have to sleep at night. So make the decision that you know that you can put your head on the pillow and sleep, and that means doing right by your patient, right? So don't let the naysayers get you down. What do they say in The Handmaid's Tale? Don't let the bastards keep you down. Yeah.
Blessed be the fruit.
Oh, may the Lord open.
Anyway. I will also say that a lot of the times, especially when you're trying to do something right by your patient, some people just don't like progressive medicine. And they'll be like, oh, I mean, like, you could do that, but I mean, like, why would you try that hard? This will work fine. We find that a lot with like end tidal. The amount of medics that are resistant to like just like nasal cannula end tidal monitoring is so funny. They're like, well, I already know it's this. I'm like, well, okay, that's great. Let's use data to support what your good juju vibes already taught you. Right. And I like that adage that like, don't let people that are skeptics about progressive medicine keep you from making the right decisions.
Mine might seem kind of out in left field, but it's basically just screw me and my ego. I think the para-ego is a pox on our profession. We have so many people who are just so convinced of their own superiority. And I was one of them coming out of class. I graduated at the top of my class, and I knew what was what, and I was, fighting the evil tide of people resistant to progressive medicine. And since I got into education, I tell our students now I am 100% more competent and 1,000% less confident than I ever was before. And I think you just need to leave room for the absolute and undeniable truth that you don't know everything, and be open to self-education, right? I'm a big proponent of being an autodidact and pursuing education with purpose, not just as merit badge collection, like a lot of people fall into. I'm not interested in tacking things onto my name. I'm interested in tacking things onto my depth of knowledge as a clinician, right? And just getting over the idea that I knew what's what for anything has been a big boon and allowed me to kind of take the scrutiny from others less seriously, because I can learn something from someone who's even wicked off based on something. Maybe that's just that I don't want to be like them, but I can still learn something. And I sleep a lot better at night, not always worried about my identification being tied up in this thing that I'm doing. So I think it's made me a better clinician, and also maybe just a better person. Ask my wife. She'll probably tell you.
Also, those certifications are a lot of money, and my company is not paying to renew them. So I'm just saying, like, less letters. I keep 2 that are very important to me. One I have to have, one I'm proud of, and that's good. That's good enough for me.
So, like we said at the beginning of this episode, we're at EMS World, which I think is a very cool conference because it is for all levels. It's from critical care to you're not even graduated basic yet. So, with that being said, I want to end on this question. If you could give one piece of advice to a new provider, what would it be?
People think of obtaining certification as this endpoint or this accomplishment, which it is something to be proud of, but you can't view it as the end. It has to be just the beginning. And if you learn anything in formative ed, it should be how to keep scrutinizing, how to keep asking questions, and how to keep learning. There is so much room to grow and to learn and to be. And if you handcuff yourself as I encounter them too frequently, right? Who are you to question me? I've been doing this for 20 years. Have you been doing it for 20 years, or have you done your first year 20 times?
Drop that mic.
I will take a 2 or 3 year paramedic who has put 2 or 3 years of self-accountability and learning as a priority in their career over the person who's repeated that first year for decades, right? So that's the best thing I can tell any new clinician is just be open to the idea of self-improvement and constantly chase it.
Honestly, to go along with that, I think find yourself a mentor. And I don't mean that as like how Tyler and I talked about someone we like looked up to, essentially. You need to find a safe mentor, even if it's just a peer. It's somebody that you can go to and really like dive into a call where they're not going to judge you or put you on the spot or try and prove why they're so much smarter than you. You need somebody safe to debrief with, because that is what's really going to help you grow when you have a safe environment where you can truly talk about things without worry of judgment. And I think if you don't have that person readily available to you, any one of us sitting here would be happy to be that mentor for you, or to reach out to us and it be a safe place that you can bounce things off of and no judgment.
Yeah, that is something I think is super important. And I think we got lucky enough between me and Obs and Soph. We kind of built it on accident on purpose. Like we all ended up at this station and then we realized that we were like-minded and started to build, this like little conglomerate together where we could all debrief and have conversations. And I got so lucky because I'm very much a product of my environment. And Soph is like a driver of education. Like Jess is a sponge and just wants all of the things.
I think you mean psychopath.
Yeah, but like a cute one. And and I got so lucky because as she pushed harder and harder and harder to educate herself even better, I got to be like a part of that. And I was like, oh, well, that sounds cool, Soph. I want to know about that too. And that was kind of the forward momentum. So anytime one of us would have a call, we would talk through it and hear ourselves, go through that call, and then would be like, okay, like here are some things that you could have done. Here's things that you did great. And it's without judgment. There's no ego. It really just kind of drops any of those like self-fulfilling issues where you want to be like the top dog, and it just takes all that away. And it is the coolest thing. So if you can build those relationships, absolutely do it.
So we are so grateful that you guys got to sit down with us and take a moment in your busy schedules, because I know you guys flew in basically early this morning and are flying out very soon. And Shay is on social media too. We will put her in the show notes where you can find her. You'll also see her brother quite often. He was, I don't know, maybe a little ashamed of being famous, but he's famous too. So, yeah.
I appreciate you putting my social media in there. If you don't mind adding my new project, it's called The Crew Table. And if you want to hear more of my brother, he is actually the narrator for it.
So real quick story about this. One of our students came to our lecturing CIC, Eric Hanchett, and said, I found this EMS like long form documentary on YouTube, and it's really good. And I want to play this for you because doesn't this guy sound exactly like Tyler? And Eric, who knows better, goes, well, I'm about to blow your mind again. And just flabbergasted the kids. So that was fun.
But again, thank you guys for being here with us on the floor around a laptop and a handheld mic at EMS World. And if you are listening to this is probably Monday after EMS World, so the 27th. But we're also going to have a bonus episode this week, which is our spooky season episode on Halloween. So check that out. It should be good. All right. Catch you later.
This has been Life in Sirens, produced by 3 nerds trying to bring you content that you might actually care about.